like you belong here on this team?
Obviously, I think overall as a player, I feel like I put in the work. I feel like everything I do, I try to do it to my best, and that's all I ask for. So, it's a lot of areas I can improve in, in different things, but I'm going out there to compete the best I can.
So you didn't get this man a fighting chance to compete. He went into a gunfight with 2 knives. He gonna lose that every time.
Every single year, the final week of NFL preseason is important for one reason, and one reason only, and that's figuring out who's going to make your favorite team's final 53-man roster. However, this year was different. This year, week 3 of the preseason was somehow more eventful and more significant than the first 2. And of course, to nobody's surprise at this point, the significance surrounded Shedeur Sanders. We saw Shedeur play in his second ever professional football game in Cleveland's final preseason game, and man, to put it bluntly, he was not that good. Sanders had arguably the worst single game performance of any rookie quarterback this preseason, and it very well may have killed all the momentum that he built against the Carolina Panthers 2 weeks prior. The thing is though, it may not matter. NFL season's around the corner, and Dak Prescott just needs 1 passing yard in order for his square to hit. Guys, you can sign up with my promo code Mikerophone to get a free $50 in lineups when you play $5 or more on Prize Picks. Once you get that, use $25 on this lineup here to make $131. I've already been making picks so I can snipe the best lines early on, and in this case, I'm pairing Dak Prescott to get 1 passing yard, which is a free square, with Kyren Williams getting a touchdown at any point and Justin Jefferson scoring a touchdown versus the Chicago Bears. On top of that, if you want more plays, I've created an incredible Discord community of experts in the WAP link in the description down below. And thank you, Prize Picks, for today's sponsor. Now, this was a very controversial game. Coming into this game, Eric Dickerson famously said that NFL teams were reportedly told not to draft Shedeur Sanders, and there was some sort of conspiracy against him.
That the NFL told other, don't draft him. Do not draft him. This came from a very good source, Cleveland Browns, and said, don't do that. Draft
really?
him. Yep, draft him. Don't do that. Because they weren't going to draft him either. We're going to make an example out of him.
I mean, the national coverage of this guy is just insane. I mean, Colin Cowherd's reaction to the Browns naming Shedeur Sanders as a 3rd-string quarterback should tell you everything you need to know.
In terms of completion percentage, TD interception, passing yards a game, Shedeur was better than Dillon. Not even close. The level of roster composition at Colorado than Oregon. That is chess and checkers. Guys, more than women, struggle admitting, yeah, I missed on that. My wife always says, you're either right or you're learning. So, listen, the NFL's telling you Dillon's better. Shedeur put up better numbers.
And pretty much this brought us to 2 camps. One was saying that from the very beginning, the NFL had it out for Shedeur Sanders as a way to get back at his father. Or maybe it was another reason. Maybe it was racial, even though the #1 overall pick in the NFL draft was a black quarterback. On the other side of the coin, fans were saying that Shedeur Sanders' fall was very much warranted because, well, there were character concerns. And he did a horrible job in the pre-draft interview process. Regardless, when it came time to play football, in his first game, I'm not gonna lie, he completely won me over. But now Shedeur Sanders might have just played the worst game of his football career, and it was much worse than you think. This has been the first week where multiple of the Browns' main 4 quarterbacks were available to play, and they happened to use all 3 available quarterbacks. Joe Flacco, who was the 1st-string quarterback, started the game, completing 9 of his 10 passes for 71 yards and a touchdown, which was good for a 129.6 passer rating. There's a reason that the veteran, former Super Bowl MVP quarterback was named the Week 1 starter, and this is exactly it. Then fellow rookie Dillon Gabriel came in to close out the first half and completed 12 of his 19 passes for 129 yards and a touchdown, good for a 100.5 passer rating. After an average showing last week, Gabriel looked much better and much more consistent in this one, but the same can't be said for the guy who replaced him. By the way, Shedeur Sanders actually addressed Dillon Gabriel's comments on him from the week prior, when Gabriel said this:
There's entertainers and there's competitors, and my job is to compete, and that's what I'm focused on doing. It is what it is. I spoke with him. He said, nah, bro, that wasn't. He said, that wasn't. He told me on the plane. He came up, he was like, nah, bro, that wasn't at you. I see how they trying to spin. I'm like, oh, all right. I'm not tripping. Regardless of whatever it was, nobody's words or anything affects me, So, yeah.
So did you believe him when he told you it wasn't on you?
Did I believe him? Yeah. I mean, I feel like you trying to start stuff now.
I wanted to say, guys, that I don't always get everything right, but I will make sure to correct all my mistakes as I make videos. So for those of you guys keeping me honest in the comment section, I really appreciate it. And I'm always going to do my absolute best to stay unbiased based off of the player's performance in each and every video. And in this particular case, Dillon Gabriel looked way more consistent in this showing. And unfortunately, I can't really say the same thing for Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders came in to start the second half and finished his final preseason performance, completing 3 of his 6 pass attempts for 14 yards and no touchdowns. Good for a 56.3 passer rating. Those are just average numbers for someone who had 1, maybe 2 unsuccessful drives. But the problem is, Shedeur got 5 series under his belt in this game and got sacked 5 total times. Shedeur Sanders literally had more sacks taken in 5 drives against the Rams' 4th string defense than he did completed passes, and worst of all, on 11 dropbacks, Sanders had a net total of negative 27 yards. Shedeur played 5 drives and was helping the other team the entire time statistically. It's safe to say that this was not a good weekend for the Sanders family. If you don't know what we're talking about, well, we have a separate video on what happened to Shiloh Sanders, and that story is absolutely insane as well. I'll leave it in the end screen so you guys can check out after this video. But there was one fatal flaw of Shedeur's that came out in this game that wasn't a problem for him against Carolina, but was a massive problem for him at Jackson State and especially Colorado, and that is his pocket awareness. Shedeur has always had a tendency to try and be a hero by making a play in the backfield instead of just simply throwing the ball away, and the film proves it. Take a look at yourself. Here on a 2nd and long near midfield, Shedeur is going to drop back to pass, and before he has any time to sit in the pocket and make a read, his left tackle gets absolutely obliterated, forcing him to have to evade a sack in order to stay alive, which to his credit he does successfully. But after he evades that sack is where the problems start. Once the edge rusher is on his hands and knees and Shedeur is in his stance 3 whole yards behind him, he needs to understand that this ball needs to come out immediately, whether it's to a receiver or sailing out of bounds, or else that defender and more defenders are going to try and bring him to the ground because that's literally what they are paid to do. Instead, Shedeur keeps running backwards and ends up getting sandwiched in between 2 Rams defenders before getting violently dragged to the turf for a loss of 25. Now, if that isn't enough proof that this is a consistent problem for Shedeur Sanders, then let me show you a clip of him from last year when he was at Colorado in a game against BYU. I mean, he does the exact same thing here, but this one was even worse, considering he was in a 3rd down situation 8 yards away from the BYU end zone. Shedeur snaps the ball. He sits in the pocket and waits for a receiver to find some open space, but before he knew it, his left tackle got obliterated, resulting in there being a free rusher right at him, just like the last play. Also like the last play, Shedeur makes a move to make said edge rusher miss, but instead of immediately throwing the ball away, he continues to try swatting away defenders before getting dragged 25 yards away from the line of scrimmage. But this time it costed his team an easy 3 points, all because he wanted to play hero. And if that isn't enough proof for you, because in your head you're saying, Mike, these are only 2 plays, you're picking at straws, then let me pull up the numbers because you can't flip those. Among every qualified quarterback this preseason, Shedeur Sanders had the most time to throw by far at 3.96 seconds per play. The next highest was Jason Bean of the Indianapolis Colts at 3.5. Now, that might seem like a good thing and that he's doing a great job of evading sacks and creating time to make a play, but that stat automatically becomes a huge negative when you look at the stat to the left of that one. Of the 20 pressures that Sanders faced in his 2 halves of work this preseason, he was sacked on 7 of them, which is good for a 35% clip. For context, among every starting quarterback in football last season, the player with the highest time to throw per play was Jalen Hurts at 3.21 seconds, with Lamar Jackson directly behind him at 3.17 seconds per play. However, the difference between Shedeur and quarterbacks like Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson is that they're not being sacked. Jalen Hurts was pressured a ridiculously low 177 times last year, sitting behind that monstrous Philadelphia offensive line last season, and was only sacked 38 times, giving him a 21.5% pressure to sack percentage. And to compare it even more, Lamar Jackson, a guy who's better at evading sacks and making plays than maybe anyone in the history of the sport, was pressured 204 times, while only being sacked 23 times, giving him a ridiculous 11.3 pressure to sack percentage. The elite quarterbacks know how to get the ball out of their hands when need be and create plays without hurting their offense in the process. But still, let's look at one more stat. If you take a look at that same group of quarterbacks, the player with the highest pressure to sack percentage was Will Levis, a guy who was memed to death all season long and may never start another NFL game in his life. And he still only had a pressure to sack percentage of 30.4%, 4.6% lower than Sanders' rate this preseason. The thing is though, despite these numbers being absolutely horrible and a really bad look for Shedeur, there's no denying that he was put in the worst possible position in this game.
Kevin Stefanski handled that situation and this whole quarterback competition horribly. You removed an opportunity for him to redeem himself in that situation to go out as a winner. It's not just we all see it, players on the team sees it, players on the opposing teams see it. They know what's going on. They know what's going down.
That's part of being a rookie. You know, you're going to get thrown into situations that, you know, maybe you don't think are ideal. It's part of the game. It's part of what makes a football player is learning how to like deal with those situations and learn from them. So yeah, listen, we've all been there. It's part of the game.
It's no secret that Kevin Stefanski and the entire Cleveland Browns front office have prioritized every single quarterback on their roster, and they've done it shamelessly. That did not change during this game. They gave Dillon Gabriel the first half spotlight over him, and they put Shedeur in a situation where it would be hard not to fail, playing with offensive linemen and receivers that aren't going to be on an NFL roster the next day. This play right here is a perfect example of that. He took a lot of sacks this game, and no, he did not play well by any means, but this play was undeniably impressive. With Shedeur feeling pressure from his left once again, he scrambles out to his right where he breaks a sack, jukes out another Rams defender, and then does a complete 180 turn to hit a trailing receiver right in the hands. The throw wasn't perfect by any means, but look at the pressure this guy was under when he made this throw. It hit his receiver in the hands and it would have been caught and all over highlight reels everywhere if the receiver hadn't been asleep at the wheel. Not only that, but after 5 miserable drives, Kevin Stefanski decided to sit Shedeur and bring in Tyler Huntley to close out the game, which sounds normal on the surface, but when you consider that Huntley literally got cut the next day, it makes you wonder why they would sit Shedeur to give Huntley one last useless opportunity, knowing he wouldn't be making the roster. It genuinely feels like they want controversy with the way they handle this. Recently retired quarterback Derek Carr agrees with me completely, saying this on X. I need to understand why we don't get to see Shedeur Sanders run this 2-minute drill. Wouldn't you want to see your young quarterback operate in this situation, get him more reps for the future? I didn't see the whole game, so maybe he already showed enough? Help me understand this. Him not seeing the whole game and wondering this was completely fair. But when fans told him the situation, he made yet another great point, saying this: I can understand that, but this is potentially his final time getting reps all year. It doesn't matter how poorly Shedeur was playing in that game. There was zero reason that Snoop Huntley should have replaced him if the entire coaching staff knew that he wouldn't be making the 53-man roster, which was never going to happen considering their quarterback dilemma in the first place. However, it does seem like Cleveland is going to carry all 4 quarterbacks in Flacco, Pickett, Gabriel, and Sanders, and they may even potentially all see the field this season.
I would not be surprised, Tommy, if by late December, early January, all 4 of these guys have played and maybe even started. I think if nothing else, and if the Browns happen to struggle this year, they'll have an idea what their quarterback situation looks like going into the spring.
Despite Sanders' poor performance, it's clear that he's still good enough to be on an NFL roster, and that these issues are coachable and droppable. His arm talent is more than worth the chance, and I mean, hey, at least he's not making plays like this. If given a proper fair opportunity, I do believe that he has the potential to make some noise, but that all depends on what he does with what he's being given. It doesn't matter what opportunities you get if you're not putting in the work to fix glaring issues in your game. If Shedeur feels like he's fine and doesn't need to work on his game, or somehow does try to fix his sack problem and quite literally can't, then we have a much bigger problem on our hands. But as of right now, we finally have a clear vision of what the Browns quarterback room is going to look like in week 1, and it doesn't involve Shedeur Sanders near the top. He just couldn't get the job done, regardless of the circumstances, and now he has to wait his turn. It's been a really rough couple of days for the Sanders family, but at least Shedeur Sanders still has a job. His brother Shiloh punched a tight end in the middle of a game and was cut less than 24 hours later. We have a whole separate video on that bizarre situation. I'm gonna leave it in the end screen. I'll meet you guys there. I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.